right, my name is Tim Neudecker. I'm from MC Services in Wisconsin, and I've been a bit of a security nut for a long time, but before that, I've been a FileMaker Pro nut. I've been a professional FileMaker Pro developer for 28 years. Right out of college, my first job, they handed me a box of FileMaker Pro 2 and said, write us a database. I went, what's FileMaker? So, been doing it since that day. I thank God for Rich Columbria and his first book on FileMaker, and it saved my rear end, and haven't looked back. It's been great. I passed every FileMaker Pro certification test, even the 5 and 6 tests that they had way back in the day. Won a FileMaker Excellence Award back in 2003 or 2004. And I'm a bit of an audiophile. So yeah, I've got tubes and records and all that kind of fun stuff. But my favorite toys are amplifiers that I have to have my teenage boys carry around the house for me because they're too big, and great big British speakers that are real bright. I'm also a bit of a car nut, so I like stealthy cars that people have no idea what they are, and they have no idea what just blew their doors off. So we're going to be talking about security today, and my main purpose today is to show you why you need security and how simple it really is to make your solution secure. I would like you, when you leave here, to be able to break into some files. I'm going to teach you how to crack into some files to show you how bad it is to roll your own security using hide functions, different layouts for different users, custom menu sets. That stuff is not security. And I'm going to show you why. That is purely cosmetics and user interface. And we're going to learn about that today. But there's other things you have to know for security and why it's important. Security is not just about keeping the bad guys out of your information. It's also about protecting your software, your code, and making sure you have good data in your system. So I consider data validation, that's part of security. Don't let bad data in your system. If you have bad data, users won't trust it. People won't use your software if they can't trust it. But also having reliable access to the data is absolutely critical. If you have it on a server and that server is not dependable or reliable, or the network that they use to connect to that server is not dependable or reliable, people will not like your system, and you're going to get bad data if the network connection drops in the middle of updating records and stuff. So that's all very important as well. But we're going to concentrate today on the unauthorized access to data. That's the main thing people think of when they think of security. But don't forget those other options. FileMaker has everything you need to make your solution secure. All the tools are there. A lot of people still like to roll their own solutions. And that's okay, but if you have the tools, why not use them? When you upgrade FileMaker Pro, stuff written in native FileMaker Pro will always work. FileMaker is very good with backwards compatibility. Things aren't going to break. I remember when the data viewer first came out, everybody was hiding all the security stuff in global fields. All of a sudden, any user could open a data viewer and look at all the global fields and see all the security, and all these home-rolled security systems just fell apart. So use the security FileMaker gives us, and that's the real lesson of today. That's what we're going to be stressing. But we have these 6 wonderful tools, and we're going to go through all of these tools and talk about them today to get them there. So let's start off with the first one, external authentication. A lot of folks think this is for the big boys, the big corporate IT where you have thousands of users, but it also works really well in the small businesses and offices. It allows the IT department to manage passwords. All you have to do as a developer is create groups and assign privileges to those groups. Okay, no more keeping track of Tom's password and he keeps forgetting it and you have to go reset it. Let IT do their job, let them reset those passwords. Also, when Tom gets fired because he keeps forgetting his password, you don't have to worry about it. IT disables Tom's account and it just rolls right through the directory, right to your system. Now you're probably saying, well, we don't have IT, I'm the IT. Well, you can now use the OAuth systems and let your Amazon network be your authentication for external, or Google, or your Microsoft 365 accounts that your users already use to log into the Office tools. in their email, those same accounts will authenticate the FileMaker if you tie your FileMaker server to one of those services. And it's not difficult to do. There are tons of videos online. I'm not going to go through that process here, but it really saves a lot of trouble, and you don't have to worry about managing passwords anymore and users. They get assigned groups by HR and IT, and everything just works. It's absolutely wonderful. The other really great thing with the OAuth methodology is you can get second factor authentication. Second factor. First factor is usually a password. Hey, this is how I'm proving who I am. A second factor is usually something about you, such as a fingerprint, an iris scan, or something you have. I have a token. I don't know if you guys have ever seen an RSA token, a little key fob that appears to be rattling off random numbers. They're actually not random. They're encrypted numbers based on the time of day. And you type whatever numbers on your pad at the time for your password, and you're the only person who can log in if you have that token. No other token in the world has that same number on it. So you hand out these tokens, and you can guarantee your users can't log into your solution unless they have their token with you. But then you still have to know the password. So if somebody steals a token, if they don't know the user's password, they're still not going to get in. And the odds of guessing a token and guessing a password at the same time are just astronomical. But also, if passwords get breached, they have to have the token. So if they're using the same password at multiple places, somebody can't break in unless they also happen to have the token. So that's a great thing, and that only comes with OAuth right now. One word about passwords, and this isn't related to FileMaker, but just in general. The National Institute of Standards and Technology, many years ago in the 90s, set some standards about making a strong password. You will have one uppercase letter, one lowercase letter, a number, a punctuation mark, all these things that we had to do. And the gentleman who actually wrote that finally came out of the closet a couple years ago and said, well, I made all that up because it sounded cool and complex and made good passwords. And in reality, those do not make good passwords. They actually do the opposite. They make passwords that people can't remember. And so they tend to write them down. And then people find the Post-it note on the screen that says, oh, to log into the HR system, use this password. And it just doesn't work. So they came out and said, okay, that's really bad. What makes a password strong is length. The longer the password is, the harder it will be for somebody to figure out what it is. I like to put a minimum of 12 characters on a password. And the reason that is to build what's called a rainbow table, which is, if you think of it as a database of every possible password combination from 1 character up to 12 characters. Going from 10 characters to 11, it becomes astronomical in size. We can't store it on hard drives. I mean, you're talking hundreds of terabytes. So your average nerd, hacker, whatever, isn't going to have hundreds of terabytes to build a rainbow table to break into a system. So then when you go to 12 characters, it's way out of whack. So we're kind of future-proofing ourselves for those future hard drives that be that big that they can hold these tables. Right now, the biggest rainbow tables I've seen are 8 characters, and they take up literally 15 to 20 gigabytes of space. So, you gotta have somebody pretty dedicated to crack passwords, but it can be done at the 8-character range. So length is the end-all, be-all for a strong password. If you download the session notes, I have several URLs for all of these statements and claims I'm making, so you can go follow, read the scientific articles behind them, and understand them. But long passwords are the key. Also, if you have long passwords, don't reuse your passwords at multiple sites. Come up with some kind of formula. So what do I mean by formula? So in my case, typically I take the name of the app I'm logging into or website, and I'll take some characters from it, maybe the first and last character or the last 3 characters. And then I will intermingle those into a big phrase, like Scooby-Doo wants a treat. But then between each word, I'll put one of those characters from that website. So every website gets a unique password that's maybe 20-something characters long. So if one website does get broken, if the passwords are in clear text, oh God, that's terrible, but that password will not work anywhere else, because that's what the hackers want to do. They want to figure out your password and then go to chase.com and log into your bank account because you reuse the same password. So come up with an algorithm or a formula to generate your password, and then you'll never forget a password. You'll never have to write them down, And hopefully those websites won't make you reuse or change your password, prevent reuse of passwords, because that's another one of the NIST's new standards is don't force users to redo a password. Let them make a big password that is secure and only change it or make them change it if they're compromised in some way. So then we're safe. Okay, so back into the FileMaker world. So the next thing we have that is probably one of the most powerful features for keeping users where they need to be is privilege sets. They allow us to control access to records, layouts, scripts, value lists. How many folks are already using privilege sets in their databases? Excellent. Please do. They are the way to do things. You can even control the length of passwords, require them to be 12 characters. Please do. And you can expire passwords. Don't do that. As we've just learned, that's not something we want to do. Don't try to roll your own security. Let's do it all in privilege sets. And it's the way to do things. Now, when you're doing privilege sets, you want to use whitelist access, not blacklist access. What does that mean? Blacklist is saying this user is not allowed to do this versus this user is allowed to do this. So if you're making extended privileges and allowing people to do things, that is good because you're not being promiscuous. You're telling the system what they're allowed to do, and then anything outside of that they can't do. Okay, so if something new comes along, you go in and you say, this user can do it, this user can do it, and that user can do it, instead of everybody does it automatically until you go and say who can't do it. So try to think in the positive. What can you do? And I love this picture. Can you read that sign from that far back? But basically the sign says, no bicycle riding, no rollerblading, no roller skating, no skateboards, and no scooters. And we have somebody buzzing by on a unicycle. And I guess that's allowed. The sign doesn't blacklist it and say they're not allowed to do that. So if they had said, hey, only walking allowed here, we would have had bases covered. And as new things, hoverboards and segways are invented, we wouldn't have to extend the length of our sign. So extended privileges are a way to put keywords into a privilege set for what people are allowed to do. So I love to make an extended privilege that might say accounting reports. And then I go to the accounting group and I add that extended privilege to the accounting group, and now everybody in accounting can run the accounting reports. We just check for that extended privilege in our scripts. It's really easy to make one. It's a simple dialogue. You give it a keyword. You can even put in a description, and then you can tell what privilege sets get that keyword. And this also makes it really easy when the boss or the users change their mind and say, oh, you know what? The shipping department should be able to do accounting reports. You don't have to go modify all your scripts that look for privilege set names that say, oh yeah, let's go into all 15 accounting reports and let's add the shipping department as being allowed to do them by checking for shipping department at the beginning of the script. You just add them an extended privilege here, and all your script has to do is look, this is an accounting report. Does this person have the privilege to run accounting reports? All right, let it run. And so it makes code maintainability much easier as well as much more secure. And where the security really comes from is errors of omission. You forget to add to that one accounting script that was written 20 years ago by the previous developer you don't remember. So if we're following this system, it's just kind of automatic. If you always use this when you make scripts, it just flows right in. You can see the list of extended privileges right in the security setup tab. You'll see that report one I made down at the bottom. And it's very easy. It's only in 2 groups right now. And a simple formula to check for that privilege set is something like this, a pattern count to say, hey, is the report privilege set in this person's extended privilege list? So we use the get function, get current extended privileges, and we look for that keyword in there. And in this case, it's in there one time, so we say, hey, let them go. So what you have to be careful of when using the pattern count methodology is that we don't have multiple things that say report in our privilege. So we have accounting reports and desktop reports. If you look for just the word report, you'll return a 2 here. So be careful of word overlap and look for uniqueness. The other thing I want to make sure you do is don't punish your users for making wrong choices. So you set up this accounting report, and you lock it down so only people in accounting can run it. And there's a nice big button there that says payroll report. And Bob from shipping goes in and goes, oh, that might be fun to run. And he clicks the button. Most development systems I've looked at, they check, they go, oh, you're not in accounting, throw up a dialog box and say, sorry, you don't have privileges to run this. Don't let the user hit a button and then smack them or hit them with a lightning bolt for hitting that button that you put on the screen for them to hit. This is where the show and hide functionality come in. You can dim the button out with conditional formatting. So they say, hey, you should not click this, or hide it completely with a show hide formula. And that will not allow the user to make a mistake, okay? And that's just much more friendly. It doesn't make the system any more secure, but it doesn't piss off your users that you dangle some candy in front of them and then tell them they can't have it. So what I'd like to do now is actually break into a file that's not properly using privilege sets and extended privileges and show you how to do it, and then we'll talk about how to fix that problem. So I'm going to jump out of here. I have a FileMaker file, and I'm going to close. You don't need to read the data on the screen. This is just the contacts template that comes with FileMaker Pro, and I just opened up this contacts template. Oh, I got to switch my computer screen. I'm sorry, it's even in my notes to do that, and I didn't do it. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so we have the contacts template. I added a field called super secret and another one called super secret calc. Okay, the super secret is just a number field. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to see, super secret is just a number. And super secret as a calc is just a calculation that equals super secret. In the normal user's privilege set, let's go ahead and change that because I'm logged in as a programmer right now. I'll open this up and we'll log in as a we'll log in as a user. We can see I don't have access to those fields because I am a user, and in my privilege set, I've said no access to those fields for the user account. That's good. We've locked it out. But let's go ahead and break into this file. So some of the things, if you'll notice when I log in here as a user, I don't have access. I can't delete records. I can't do any of that. Everything's grayed out, okay? So we've locked this one down pretty good. We turned on minimal set security. I'm going to go up under File, and I'm going to make a new file. And it's just going to be blank. And I'm going to say Create, and I'm going to put it on the desktop, and I'm going to call it Rogue. I'm going to hit Save. And I'm not even going to add any new fields to this file. I'm just going to go straight to the Relationship tab, and I'm going to add a new relationship, and I'm going to find a new FileMaker data source. We've all probably done this before, and I'm going to look to that file that I'm logged into as a low-level privileged user. And I'm going to log into that file. And look at that, I can see all the tables in that file. So I'm going to grab that contacts table, and I'm going to put it on my relationship graph. Now I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to go into layout mode, and I'm going to make a new layout. And let's do a table, and we'll call this contacts. Contacts. Hit finish. And let's see, we want to show, let me do one thing. Layout mode. I'm going to base this on the contacts table right here, and I'm going to throw some fields on this layout. Hey, here's all the contact fields. Look at that. So let's grab first name, last name, and look at that. Secret and super secret are missing. They don't even show up in the list. Okay, I can't see them. They're not there because I have no access. But if I look around in here, I can grab, say, the website field, the first name and the last name. I can put these over here. And if I go browse, I can see those fields and I can enter data was here. So here's a field. I don't even have access to. It's not in my layout, and I can put it in there. But what if I didn't want that record here? I can come up here. Can I say delete? Oh, look at that. Delete's hidden for me. That's pretty good. Okay. You know what? I know what's wrong. 1 second, please. Close this. I opened up the file I was practicing on before that's already locked down. So all the stuff I wanted to break into was not there. There we go. So I go to, this is why we keep backups. We open up this file. I'm going to close my rogue file. I'm going to open this up. I'm going to log in as a user. There we go. So we see we still have access. Now the calculation field, this is what I wanted to show here. It's the same calc we had before, but the only difference is we can actually see the data that's in it. So in this privilege set, I have the super secret set up not to allow access, but I did not hide access to a calculation that uses it. So just because a person can't see the field doesn't mean you as a programmer can't use the field. So I made a calculation and I still expose that data, so you have to think about that. So we're going to lock that field down so it gets the no access. But let's open up our rogue file again, and let's go into contacts right here. We'll take the website off, and you'll notice the super secret calc shows up now because it's not locked down, but there's also another hidden field there called salary, which is not locked down, but it's not on the layout. I can drop that on the layout. Whoops, cancel, go into browse mode, and I can now see everybody's salary. So I now have access to all this information that's not available over here. So what we've done is we made our own layout that lets us see our own stuff in our own file that doesn't follow the security that was set up in the original template file. So how would we lock that down? Let me close the rogue file. And let's go look at that privilege set. I'm going to log in as a programmer again. Here we go. So now we can see everything. We can see what relationships are here. We can see the fields. There's that salary field. There's that super secret calculation. So let's go into the privilege sets, manage, security. And you'll see that we have a user privilege set right here. And I'm going to go to advanced settings, privilege sets, and we see we have a general user privilege set. So I'm going to edit that privilege set, and we can see that these users can, let me zoom in on this so you can see that. Is that better? There we go. So we can see, hey, they can only view layouts, they can only view value lists, but custom records have custom privileges. Let's go ahead and open that up. And you'll see that we have limited field access. And this is where I modified the file to say, hey, they have no access to the super secret. But I'm going to come down here to super secret calc, and I'm going to make that no access as well. And salary, they should not see that. So I'm going to say no access. Now, maybe the super secret calc they can view. So I'll leave that as a view, and they can't edit it, but it's a calc, so we'll do that. We'll make the super secret a view only. We'll say OK, and zoom out, say OK, say OK, say OK. Let's open up our rogue file, see what we get now. So here we go. Oh, we're still logged in as a programmer. So we got to come over here, open this as a user with our user privileges that we just modified. So we can see the no access. And let's open up our rogue file. And we can see the no access for the salary. We've locked that out now. But there's something else you can do with a rogue file. I can come up to the scripts, and I can add a new script. And let's find my favorite script step, perform script. And I'm going to pick a script, not from my file, but from the contacts file. Let's see, we could sort by salary. What's this one? This looks fun, delete. Remember, I wasn't allowed to delete over here. But now I have a script that says delete. So I'm going to save. So if I go back to this file, I don't have delete. It's all dimmed out, it's taken out, it's gone because I hid those commands with minimum menus. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to run my script. Well, let's see, what record? So I'm going to click on Deanna Kipley here, and I'm going to hit run that script. Oh my gosh, it just disappeared. So a user with a rogue file can run any scripts you have in your file. So like we did the fields, you can go in and you can control access on a script-by-script basis of what a user is allowed to run. You can check for extended privileges at the beginning of scripts to check should they be able to run this script or not. But there's an even easier way to lock a file down. So I want to show this command to you. I'm going to go back into security. Dun, dun, dun. Close it, log back in as a user at a program level, and we're going to go back into the security, manage, advanced. There's a tab here most folks never look at called file access. And this whole tab is here specifically to stop everything I just did. Absolutely. No ifs, ands, or buts. I'm going to turn this on, and I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to close the file. So unless a file has been blessed, you as a programmer come in and say, that file is allowed to access my file and get data, they can't do it. It locks them out. So let's close the file. Let's open it up as a user. User. So we're back in with our privilege set. I'm going to open up my rogue file. Uh-oh. Rogue is not authorized to open the protected files context security. Do you want to authorize it? Well, sure, let me in. I'm going to hit yes. Oh no, I have to know the programmer's password to do that. So I, as a user, if I'm not a programmer, I can't make relationships into this file. Now, it doesn't mean other people can't use relationships you've made. So relationships you make are all still valid, but this will stop them from making new relationships. And that's what you want to do. So this is one of the top dog things you need to do. Turn on that file access. And now in FileMaker 18, it is on by default. So you've probably bumped into this with FileMaker 18 when you've made new files. 17 and before, it was off by default. So now files are automatically secure, but if you have anything that's older than not created originally with 18, you'll need to go in and turn this on. So let me jump back to our slide deck here. Let me just close this and close this. So we looked at this file access dialog. I've already mentioned that, hey, it's on by default in 18. It's absolutely critical that you use this. I mean, that one simple checkbox can make your file hundreds of times more secure and stop all the rogue file access. The next thing we want to talk about is Secure Socket Layer Communication, SSL. SSL has two primary purposes. It is used to start encryption between a client machine and the server, and then it's also used to authenticate the server. Is the server I'm connecting to who they say they are? You've probably had phishing scam emails, and when you open up the web page they want you to go to, say, hey, log into Apple and update your iCloud account. And when you go there, it doesn't say Apple up top anymore because they can't get a green padlock because they're not Apple. So this lets you lock your server down. You give it a name, and then when somebody logs in, they get the certificate from that machine, and you can verify if they are who they say they are. And that's what an SSL cert's first job is that proving that that machine is who they think they are. Now, right now in the FileMaker community, it's probably not a big deal. Okay, we probably don't have a lot of Chinese and Russian hackers running around imitating your company's FileMaker Pro server. They're probably more interested in imitating PayPal or Venmo right now. But you have to do this. You got to make things secure. But if you can't get a fully qualified domain name to prove who you are, you can at least turn on SSL and get the encryption so that the data going over the network is encrypted. How many folks are using the Wi-Fi here today? Anybody? Have you noticed it's not encrypted Wi-Fi? I can see everything you're doing over it. Okay, so not only is it not encrypted, it's not isolated Wi-Fi. Normally hotel Wi-Fi should prevent you from seeing any other computers. You should be isolated and their router should not let you see other machines. This hotel is wide open. If you're on a computer, open up your file sharing control panel, you'll probably find 1,000 computers out there. If you go into FileMaker and say open up hosts, you'll probably find 50, 60 people hosting FileMaker databases who don't know they're hosting them. Okay? And SSL will help you encrypt when you're in open environments like that. But there's other things we can do to make things secure. The first thing that happens when you try to open a host and the SSL cert doesn't work, you get this dialog box. And this is what most users' interpretation of that dialog box is like. It's just a bunch of technical mumbo jumbo. All they know is they have to hit that OK button to open up the database and get to work. But what this dialog box is really telling you is this server is not who they say they are. Are you sure you really want to go there? That may not be a good idea. Okay, so we don't want users to be trained to click OK, and unfortunately they've been trained that way. Oh, if you ever see that SSL thing, just hit OK. And that's not really okay. That's a big time security warning that somebody might be spoofing your server. If you ever get this on a web page, run away screaming. Don't go to the website because you don't know who it is or what they're doing to you. Okay, they're not who they say they are. Firewalls. Turn on your firewall. It is absolutely critical. Whether it's a software firewall or a hardware firewall, it will keep you safe. That is its purpose. Only open up the ports in the firewall you absolutely need. And don't open up port 16,000. Okay? If you're going to do administration on your server, remote desktop into the server, do your VPN connection, get into the server the proper way and make the changes there. Okay, you don't want to leave the console out for other people to try to poke at and try to get into. The primary ports, and typically the only ports you should ever open are of course the default FileMaker port. SSL better be open. Port 80 if you're doing any web work, and 2399 if you have ODBC going into your FileMaker server. Virtual private networks, this is what everybody here should be doing right now, is using a VPN because we are on unencrypted Wi-Fi. This is a way for you to encrypt your traffic back to a central point and then send it out from there. Okay, and it's also a way to prevent having to open ports in your firewall to let your FileMaker server out to the entire world. Almost all small office routers now will support VPNs. If they don't, there are third-party solutions you can use to do VPNs. I use one called Anonybox. I am also a NordVPN client. NordVPN is just a company that has servers all over the world, and you can get an encrypted tunnel to their server and then go out unencrypted from there. The tunneler box you see here from Anonybox I use when I travel. It lets me take the hotel Wi-Fi or internet, run it through a VPN, and then I have my children and wife and everybody connect to the box there, to our own private Wi-Fi, because I don't trust the hotel Wi-Fi. I know how easy that is to break and get into and mess around with. This black device you see here, this is called the Wi-Fi Pineapple, and it's their nano version from a company called Hak5, and its sole purpose is to break people's Wi-Fi. In Chicago last summer at the Pause on Security conference, I set one of these up, and I was able to capture several high-level FileMaker developers with it. I logged it into the conference center's Wi-Fi, and then it broadcast out the same ID as the conference center's Wi-Fi. So as far as they knew, they were connecting to the conference center. What they didn't notice is the SSL certs were not what they thought they were, because I was issuing my own certs from this. So when they went to web pages, they would get a cert. They would ask the box here for a web page. It would go to Google, get the web page from Google, bring it back, because it has a connected connection that's encrypted to Google, decrypt it, then re-encrypt it with its own password and send it to the user. So then the user puts in their search request, they ask the box is using its SSL cert, it decrypts it, sends it back out. So it just plays man in the middle. And you can watch everything the user is doing. And the user thinks they're doing SSL because they saw that dialog box that said, oh, that cert's not who it thinks it is. Yeah, whatever, just say, okay, I need to move on. Well, that checkbox, since they were saying that, yeah, whatever, they didn't realize that was saying there's somebody in the middle listening to what you're saying. And this box, what do you think one of these things costs? $70. And it's all plug and play. You download it, you plug it into your USB port, you open up the web page to it, and you click a couple checkboxes. I want to break SSL. I want to do this. My favorite feature it has for web pages is the drunk internet option. It makes all of the photos. When people go to web pages, it downloads the photos, it runs them through a Photoshop filter to make them fuzzy, and then sends them on. So when they're looking at web pages, everything's out of focus and fuzzy. So you can do all kinds of crazy things. And these things are cheap. I mean, super cheap and easy. And you'll find them all over Starbucks and places like that. So that's where you really want to make sure you do a VPN, because a VPN will blow right through this thing and keep you safe and secure. Okay, so you want your users in the field using VPNs to connect to your office. It is the way to be safe and secure. Physical access to the server is something that's often overlooked. If I have physical access to your server, I have access to your files. These are two real servers in the wild. One is in a janitor's closet with cleaning chemicals all over it, and the other one is in the kitchen. And it's getting so hot in the kitchen, they had to point fans at it to keep it cool. Okay? So this just scares me to death that something's going to get spilled on the server's going to get destroyed, or worse yet, I'm going to walk up to the server with one of these. Let me skip forward a thing. It's called a rubber ducky, and these are about $40, and it looks like a USB thumb drive. But in reality, it's a computer, and it tells the computer you plug it into that it's a keyboard. Okay, so it types. So you load programs onto it that do things. So you stick this into somebody's USB port, and it does a command space on a Mac and pulls up the search bar. It searches for the terminal app, and it starts typing in commands. So the package that was demonstrated at the Pause on Security by Chris Moyer, he wrote a script of this. You plug it into a back of a FileMaker server, it breaks into the password, it goes into the server, opens up a shell window, changes to the default FileMaker database folder, zips up everything that's in that folder, and FTPs it off to its own account. So in about 30 seconds, he could walk up to a FileMaker server, plug this in, then unplug it, and when he got home, all of the files that were on that server were sitting on his FTP server. Okay? Physical access. You have to protect your server. This is why servers should be in racks with locks inside locked rooms, and that you should have logs about who can get in there near your server. Because if I have physical access to your files, all bets are off. Okay, you give me physical access, I'm going to break into your file. Okay, so how do we stop that? We use encryption at rest, EAR. It uses AES 256 encryption to encode the files at rest. So what does at rest mean? That means anywhere they're stored on disk. Okay, so when you're not using them, the files are encrypted onto disk. This can slow down FileMaker just a little bit. I don't think this 5 to 15% performance hit that was quoted when encryption at rest first came out still stands. Computers were considerably slower then. So I don't see much of a hit now when I use encryption at rest on files. But it encrypts the entire file. Not only does it encrypt the file, it encrypts all your backups, all your temp files, and everything. It does add a little bit of annoyance so that when you want to work on the file single user, you have to put in your encryption password, then your user password. But hey, that's the cost of security these days. Your server admin does not have to know the password. He can ask you to come over when you install the file on the server, put it in the FileMaker server. FileMaker server will remember that password for that file. So your IT department doesn't have to know the passwords of the file, so they can't crack them. All your backups are secure, so if they go off site, They're safe. If a backup disk gets lost, it's safe. If your computer gets stolen at the airport and you have a copy of the solution, it's safe. So what I'd like to do is show you why you want encryption at rest. So I have a Windows machine running here, and we have FileMaker, and I'm going to grab this contacts database that we've been working with right here. Let me just make sure FileMaker's quit over here. I'm going to grab this file, copy, and it's already over here, great. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to open up a program. You can buy this program for $30 online. There's 4 or 5 different versions of it, and it's called the FileMaker Password Recovery. And it's a utility in case you've forgotten your password to your FileMaker file. I'm going to hit open, and I'm going to point to this contacts security file. This is the same file we were working with before, and I'm going to hit open, and it whirls and buzzes, and just that quickly, it found all the user accounts in that file. I don't know if you can see that. So there's the full access account I was logging into with Tim Neudecker. Here's the user account we were logging into. Here's an admin account that's not turned on. And here's the guest access account that's not turned on. Well, let's take this full access account and let's click the change password button. And I'm just going to put in a password of Tim, not my normal strong password that I use. And I'm going to say, okay, it says, hey, the password for Tim Neudecker was replaced. So this doesn't tell me what the password was. Okay, FileMaker is good. It stores hashes so people can't steal passwords out of it, but it can't prevent me from replacing the password. So all I have to do is double click this file. It comes up. I will now use the password TIM, hit sign in, and we are now logged into this file with full access. So like I said, if you're not using encryption at rest, I will get into your file. Okay, it might cost me $30 to buy this program. More than likely, I'll just download it from a BitTorrent site for free. So, hey, if I get access to your Dropbox, I now have access to all your data. If your iCloud gets broken, I now have access to all your company files. Okay, you have to use encryption at rest. It is the only way to prevent that. Let's go back to the presentation here. So encryption at rest is the way to do things. Now it uses AES 256 encryption. So how strong is that? Somebody was asking me this earlier before the meeting. How strong is the encryption? 256-bit encryption. If every person on the planet owns 10 computers, and there's 7 billion people on the planet, okay, so we have 70 billion computers working, and each of those computers can test 1 billion passwords every second. On average, we figure 50% of the time we're going to get the password halfway through going through a list of every possibility. That means it's going to take 77 times 10 to the 24th years to crack that password for a 256-bit key. Okay, so this is not going to be broken anytime soon. Okay, it is super secure. It's what you want. It is there. Again, if you download the slides for this or the PDFs, I have the URLs where all the math and science articles are behind all of these statements that are up here, so you can read what's going on. So what's the next most important thing we need to do? Backups. So we're encrypting our data. Now we need to make sure we have lots of backups. Backups are critical. Hard drives are so cheap now, there's no excuse not to do a lot of backups. On my development servers, remember we have 3 servers now from FileMaker. You have a separate server for a developer, a testing server, and a deployment. In my development environments, I like to do backups every 30 minutes. I have one script that's, every 30 minutes I'm backing up all my files. And that's not because I'm afraid the hard drive's going to crash. It's because I know I'm an idiot. I'm going to make a mistake and delete some code that I shouldn't have deleted. And I need to go back within a 30-minute chunk and get it so I don't lose it. So users are the same way. Almost every time I've had to do a restore from backup, it's been due to user error. I deleted that user account I shouldn't have deleted. I changed an invoice I shouldn't have changed. Can you restore it? Or they did a replace and the found set wasn't right. So you can't do too many backups. But the really important thing is making sure you have off-site backups. And then, beyond the off-site backups, is the progressive backups. That lets you get down to the minute backup. So if there is a problem, you can come back up to speed really quick and may not have to go to a backup that's 30 minutes ago and you lose lots of data you've put in. Data loss is one of the top reasons for businesses failing right now. In fact, when businesses lose their databases, almost 51% of them are closed within 2 years. They just can't recover from the astronomical loss. Imagine losing all your accounting information and you don't know who to go collect money from for 3 or 4 months while you're trying to recover from an encryption attack from somebody. You know, they get onto your machines with a Trojan horse and they encrypt all your data, and now you don't know who owes you money and you can't do collections. That's going to be really expensive. The same study that said most data loss is due to mistaken deletions, not so much failed hard drives. But the really critical thing is to test your backups. I can't tell you how many times I've had clients say, oh yeah, we're backing up, and then they have a data loss, and they realize their IT wasn't doing backups properly. They were backing up the live file folder on FileMaker Server or doing disk images on a virtual machine, and their files are just corrupt because they're all in memory. They're not on the disk, and they're all damaged. So do a plugs out test. Test your IT department when you get back. Say, hey, I lost this file on the FileMaker server. Can you restore it from last night's backup for me? And see if they can do it. You know, they might say, oh, wow, we've never used CrashPlan before to restore something. Let me see if I can figure that out. And then the file you get's damaged. So do that plugs out test. You know, you don't want to learn about the 5 stages of backup failure: denial, bargaining, anger, depression. You don't want to do that. So I'm really hoping that today you take away all these ideas so that you don't have to worry about this stuff. You know, don't think that hiding is security, that's just making your user interface pretty. Use privilege sets. That's what they're there for. Use them to their fullest. Use external authentication when possible. Encourage those long passwords with your users. Turn on the file reference control. These last 3 are absolutely the most important. Turn on the file reference control so people can't make relationships into your files. Use SSL on your server, and use encryption at rest. You do those last 3, you're 99% of the way there. You're really rocking. Don't be lazy. It's just a few clicks of the mouse, and it makes all of the difference. I did make some minor changes to my session. I did a bunch of spell checking, imagine that, just before the session. So I will be uploading a new set of slides, but the ones that are there are pretty close to what was displayed today. And I thank you very much, and I'll take questions if anybody has them. Thank you. Please.
Have you got any recommendations for if you're developing a product within FileMaker that's like almost like a standalone product where the user has to input, say, like SMTP settings? Is there any safe way to do it within?
Hello, hello. Oh. Okay, here, may I have that's fine. I'll do this. Hello. So the question was, how does he make a commercial product? He needs to store passwords that the customer supplies, in his example, SMTP server passwords. So now they're in your database. So the first thing we do, FileMaker has, am I okay? FileMaker has encryption. So when the user gives you that password through your script, your dialog box, you can box so people don't see it. Then you can encrypt it and store it encrypted in your database and then decrypt it in scripts to send it out. Cloudly. Yes, sir.
So I have a question about SS. My company, I'm not sharing. The question is, do I have to get a GoDaddy SSL or some external SSL, or does my company create its own SSL and that should give me the green light?
Oop, hey, we got Mike now. Okay, so the question is has an internal server within his company, not exposed on the internet, and does he have to get a real SSL certificate to do it? The short answer is if you can, do it, but then your server it costs money, $50, security, okay. But it can be annoying if the server's behind a NAT and is not a stable IP on the internet. You have to get into all these intermediate certificates and pain in the butt. The big thing is to get the encryption turned on. I didn't show some of the equipment that's here that you can get at the Hack5 place. You can get all kinds of little boxes if you're in a company's network. You just leave them laying around, plug them into one of their network ports, and now you can monitor all their network traffic. So you at least want to turn on SSL. You may not be using a real certificate. You'll be using the testing development, but at least you're getting encryption. Okay, so at least turn on the SSL and use the built-in certificate that comes with FileMaker Server at a minimum.
So the company created a certificate for me. The credentials say my company name on there. So they have some self-generating certificate?
No, FileMaker will not let you pick who the certificate authority is. So if you sign a certificate yourself, you make your own certificate in-house. You don't use one of the large companies outside that's blessed by FileMaker. FileMaker won't trust it because anybody can say they're a certificate authority and make a certificate then. But what you can do, you'd have to go to GoDaddy or one of the other companies to do that. So, yeah. Anybody else? Please.
Can you make a FileMaker solution immune from ransomware?
So I don't know how we would define immune to ransomware. If your server is on the internet and can get a Trojan installed that goes through all the disks and encrypts every file, no, because that's done at the OS level. It's not program specific or anything, it's OS specific. So you won't be able to prevent that. How you prevent that is you don't let your FileMaker server be a web browser or a mail server that can get infected in the first place. That's why you don't use your FileMaker server as a desktop machine with somebody else running other programs on it and FileMaker's in the background. A FileMaker server is a FileMaker server, and that's all it is, and nobody touches it, and it's locked in the closet. No more? Well, thank you very much. Oh, go ahead. Yes, it does. When you encrypt a file, there is a checkbox you can check that says, convert all of my containers to encrypted storage. And actually, I said that backwards. By default, it will encrypt your containers. The checkbox is to say, hey, I don't think my containers need to be encrypted, don't encrypt them. And you don't want to check that box. Yes, Mr. Blackwell. Mm-hmm. So what Stephen was just saying, if you couldn't hear him, is that this is very real. What I'm showing here today is not make-believe. I didn't make up these situations. These are from real things that have happened to real people in the world, and we're just demonstrating how it was done. This is not a joke. This is live. You need to be safe. Okay, thank you. Everybody have a great DevCon.